This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Hello and welcome to a Thursday afternoon right here on VSiN. It's the Sports Betting Network. It's Money Moves. He's Joe Serralo. I am Ben Stevens, and we have you covered for the entirety of this jam-packed Thursday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time right here on VSiN. Joe, great to meet you. Great to be working with you and excited to break down all that we have on the final day of the NBA season before the All-Star break in Los Angeles and a lot of college basketball games. Maybe not featuring a top 25 team in action, but some great mid-major bouts for us to preview and break down as well.
Yeah, Ben, I'm excited for it. Look, no secret. It is a slow time of year on the sports calendar, especially when the NHL goes to break for the Olympics. And then you've got the NBA All-Star game, which, you know, I'm going to get up on a quick soapbox here. I do this every year. Why is the All-Star game the weekend after the Super Bowl? I mean, you got to have it at some point, either during the playoffs or maybe that week before the Super Bowl. But football's over. People need action. And the NBA takes action away from us for a week. It's an absolute atrocity. But luckily, you and I are big college hoops guys. You mentioned it. No ranked action tonight, but a lot of games. And I mean, I've got 5 or 6 that I'm firing on. So I love this mid-major board.
We will have you covered for everything. Big battles in the Missouri Valley Conference, Summit League action where we are hoping for some pace and space tonight. Again, we have you covered just over 4 weeks away from Selection Sunday. So, Joe, not necessarily loving the new format for the internationals versus the young American and older American NBA guys on All-Star Sunday night, but we'll talk about everything you need to know with 14 games in the association yesterday and 3 more today before we hit the break. This segment is sponsored by Upside. As we get going, download the free Upside app and earn real cash back every single time you fill up. Use promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank. Again, this segment brought to you by Upside. Use promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank. There is so much to get to on this Thursday afternoon on Money Moves, so now it's time for the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the rundown.
Joe, we had more games today, 57 Division I men's college basketball games on this jam-packed Thursday than either yesterday on a Wednesday or even a star-studded Tuesday night slate. Sure, there's not a top 25 team around the country taking place, but as Joe and I have teased too, we'll have you covered. Missouri Valley action, Summit League action, anything your heart desires on this Thursday here on Money Moves with some picks and some plays to make you hopefully more profitable later on.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple of those conferences there. How about the Big West for those night owls? You and I out here in Los Angeles, man. I mean, this has been a fun conference to bet. You mentioned action, no shortage of pace out there. Look, I'm a firm believer. Mid-major markets are where you can make the most money. They're not as sharp when it comes to the lines. They're just as exciting as top 25 matchups. It's going to be a fun one.
Yes, it certainly is. Our producer, Luke DeVosta, will have a little bit of a trend that he has been playing and keeping an eye on. In the last 32 times he has wagered on it, it has hit 24 of those 32. I'm not a math major, but I know that it is a very, very high clip. Joe, no top 25 teams in action today on a Thursday, but 5 yesterday, on a Wednesday. And we continue to see chaos in the few weeks before the month of March. Clemson at home yesterday, booked as a double-digit favorite against Virginia Tech, goes down, losing by double digits, 76-66. Clemson now its second ACC loss. They trail Duke by a full game at the top of those conference standings. Joe, Clemson, the 4th top 20 team this week alone in the past 48 hours to lose to an unranked side. March looms, March is near, but the chaos does not win.
Yeah, we've had plenty of chaos ever since Super Bowl Sunday. It's been a weird week. Got back in the win column myself yesterday after Monday and Tuesday. I struggled to read the board. I went down with Iowa State at TCU on Tuesday. But one team that didn't fall victim to an upset, how about those Florida Gators, man? I mean, they started off a little shaky November, December, but Todd Golden's crew getting hot at the right time. You want to lay 4.5? No problem. 7.5? No issue. 10.5? They'll win by 20. This Gators team might be rearing up for another Final Four run.
An 8.5, 9.5 point favorite yesterday on the road in Athens against Georgia in Stegman Coliseum. The Gators winning by 20, 86-66. And Joe, one thing that stands out about this UF team, as you alluded to, doesn't matter the spread you lay. In their 9 conference victories atop the SEC, they have covered in all 9 wins. And despite being a very efficient and up-tempo team, playing to the under. 11 SEC games now, under yesterday for a total of 164.5 against UGA. And when you look at this Florida side, that's now under in 8 of 11 conference games for the Gators this year.
Wow, that's a great trend right there on Florida. It just shows you, in a college hoops landscape where so many teams are either proficient on offense or defense, this is one of the most balanced teams in the country. I'm not one to usually bet on a team to repeat in the futures market, but with how they look right now, I mean, a Final Four ticket might have to be in the works.
Texas Tech hammering Colorado at home in Lubbock. Huge night for Donovan Atwell against one of the worst three-point shooting defenses in the Big 12, that being CU. Michigan trailed by 16 in the second half at Northwestern, the largest deficit the number 2 team in the country had seen this year. Joe, they end the game on a 45-17 run to knock off Northwestern and still win by double digits. Plenty more thoughts on college basketball in our next segment and a look at this Thursday betting card. Hoops Greg Peterson, will join us in our second hour on Money Moves to break down the board. And Hoops has a ton of play. Speaking of hoops, from college to the NBA we go. 3 more games on this Thursday night, Joe, before we hit the All-Star break of the 2025-26 NBA campaign. Only 3 games on this Thursday. We had 14 yesterday. Plenty to break down from the night that was in the NBA.
Yeah, yesterday was a fun one. How about 2 teams atop the futures market in the East, the Knicks and the Cavs, both putting up a $138 in their respective victories. I'll tell you, for the Knicks, look, I'm a Knicks fan, no secret about it. Everyone on the network, everyone viewing knows that. But that was a great, convincing near 50-point win on the road for a team that's struggled more or less away from Madison Square Garden this season. I don't know, that win going into the futures market, or going into the All-Star break, has me looking at a plus 360 ticket to win the Eastern Conference in the futures market.
138-89 on the second leg of a back-to-back for New York on the road in Philadelphia. No Joel Embiid for the 76ers, but the All-Star Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe did play. Joe, when we were doing Money Moves yesterday, myself and Mark Malusis, it was a 2.5-point spread in favor of Philly. The Knicks close as a slight road favorite. They win by 49. They had as many as a 52-point lead in the newest Knickerbocker in Jose Alvarado. 26 points. 8 made triples off the bench for New York. These other teams out east, big wins yesterday. The Cleveland Cavaliers, as Joe alluded to, 138-113 at home against the Wizards. 5 straight for the Cavs, including all 3 with James Harden in a Cleveland uniform, entering the All-Star break. They are booked as the short favorites atop the Eastern Conference. The Celtics in form. They cover as a 13.5-point home favorite against the Chicago Bulls. In another peculiar line last night, Joe, Detroit on the road in the 6 against the Raptors, booked as a 1.5 underdog. The top team in the Eastern Conference wins outright, 113-95, behind one of the best defenses in the association there in the Motor City.
Yeah, look, got to give the Pistons credit. I mean, they've got a pretty assertive lead atop the Eastern Conference. It's a great story. They're a fun team. In fact, last year, they scared me in that opening round as a Knicks fan. Now, obviously, the Knicks won it in only 5 games, but Detroit they were frisky, right? And it seems like they're ahead of schedule, almost reminiscent of like the New England Patriots, if you want to make that cross-sport comparison here. What concerns me about this Detroit team, even if they get the 1 seed, I just don't think that they have the shooters to go on a playoff run. So great story, fun team to bet on a night-to-night basis. Not a team I'd be looking to target in the futures market.
5.5 game lead for the Pistons atop the Eastern Conference. The Cavs, the favorite at 3-1, but the 4 teams we just discussed, the Pistons, the Celtics, the Knicks, and the Cavs, all within 80 cents of one another for that Eastern Conference crown. And Joe, we finished to set the stage on today's show with a taste of the ice action over in Milan at the 2026 Winter Olympics, the men's Olympics hockey tournament starting yesterday. And Team USA begins its Olympic journey in just about an hour. Jonathan Davis will join us later on in just about 20 minutes to preview the United States' opening matchup against Latvia. 3.5 goal favorite is Team USA on that puck line against the Latvians.
I mean, that's a lofty number, 3.5. But how do you not lay it with this team, right? It does feel like it's a 2-horse race. It's going to be Canada. It's going to be the U.S. I will say, if you're looking for a dark horse and maybe an open group, Italy, they took a loss yesterday. They looked pretty competitive against Sweden, though. It was a surprising match for the Italians. But that group for the U.S., Group C, is so generous. It does feel like it's going to be Canada versus the U.S. What do they say? An immovable object versus an unstoppable force?
It feels like that, Joe. It certainly does. The four nations face off last year. The NHL All-Star break of a season ago provided that preview of Olympic hockey. Of course, it was Canada in OT taking down the U.S. Speaking of our friends from the Great White North, the Canadians starting their Olympic journey today with a 5-0 bashing of the Czech Republic. The young stud in San Jose, Macklin Celebrini, he hit the back of the net, as did Nathan MacKinnon, the star for the Colorado Avalanche. 5-0 the Canadians over the Czech Republic to start their Olympic Games over there in Milan.
Yeah, no surprise there. Don't tell Dave Ross. I might have to take Canada minus 110 to win the whole thing.
Yeah, listen, I don't blame you for doing so. The Canadians, the favorites right now to win the gold medal. How much noise can the United States make, as they will most likely be battling Canada in that gold medal game? Again, Team USA in just about an hour starts its Olympic Games against Team Latvia. We'll have Jonathan Davis on a little bit later to preview that matchup. Yes, Team USA is minus 2,400 to win the game. We'll give you some betting wagers that you can make. He's Joe Cirallo. I am Ben Stevens. It's a Thursday afternoon here on Money Moves. The show continues next on VSiN.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Money Moves here on this Thursday on VSiN. He is Joe, I am Ben, and we are very excited to have you with us for the next 2 hours up until 4 p.m. Eastern time. It's the final day of the association before the All-Star break. A triple header of NBA games that we'll preview throughout the show. We had 14 yesterday, some more recaps from the night that was in the NBA coming your way in just a matter of moments. But Joe Cirallo and myself, Ben Stevens, as you can tell by the Big Ten pennants behind me, we're a couple of college basketball aficionados, and we've got a great Thursday slate, albeit without a top 25 team in action. Joe, before we get to the 57 games of mid-major hoops on this Thursday, let's continue to look back on a Wednesday night. We talked about the Florida Gators, a 20-point road win in SEC play last night in Athens against Georgia. They easily cover as an 8.5, 9.5-point favorite. Florida atop the SEC, 9-2 straight up in conference play, covering in all 9 wins. The Gators are the reigning national champs and currently a 16-1 price, 8th best around the nation to cut down the nets in early April for a second consecutive year. How much are you buying into this Gators team right here, right now for Todd Golden in Florida?
Man, I think the proof is in the pudding. I think you got to buy into this team. And, you know, I said this earlier in the opening segment. I don't like generally, especially with college kids and college programs, to bet on any team to repeat in consecutive seasons. But we're noticing a lot of trends get bucked with the ever-changing landscape now with NIL, right? It's more like a professional atmosphere college sports are, at least the power conferences are, than it's ever been in the past. And so last year we had the 4 1 seeds go to the Final Four. That hadn't happened in about 2 decades. Now I think you might see the next trend is programs that are built like powerhouses like Florida are going to be more likely to repeat. And like we said, Florida is not just winning. They're covering at a high clip. You mentioned it. They've covered all of their conference wins, each and every one of the 9. They're demolishing teams at home, on the road. I laid a hefty number with them at A&M on Saturday, laid 7.5 at plus money. It comes down to 4.5 at tip, and I'm going, oh no, did I miss the mark? No, it was no problem. The Gators with another double-digit win in College Station. They did it again in Athens. This team is so legit. They return more players than most college programs this season. They've got a good chunk of their scoring coming back from last year. And they've got a great, young, energized coach who really gets these kids to buy in. I think the Gators to make the Final Four is a really strong futures ticket worth placing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Joe, to your point, this national championship winning team returned a ton of production from last year. Sure, guys like Walter Clayton Jr. now playing in the NBA, but you've got significant contributors like Alex Condon, Tommy Houck, who was a bench player last year, now in the starting five, and a big man in Ruben Chinyelu, who continues to just rack it up. 20 boards yesterday for Chinyelu for Florida to kind of pace things for this Georgia team. It was a matchup I did not love for the Bulldogs. Not great at cleaning the glass. Florida, the second best offensive rebounding team in the country. That's extra possessions. That's how you cover, laying 8.5 on the road. That's how you win by 20. And again, the Gators defensively have been great, stifling a really good Georgia offense, under in 5 of the last 6 for Florida in this current run. Another upset last night in college basketball for the 4th time in about a 24-hour span. An AP top 20 team losing to an unranked side. And a couple of those games have happened in the top 20 teams' home ballpark. Inside Little John Coliseum last night in Clemson, South Carolina, the Tigers suffering their second ACC loss, booked as nearly a double-digit home favorite against Virginia Tech. Joe, the Hokies win by double digits, 76-66 on the road in Clemson.
Yeah, that's a massive win for VTech. I think I saw yesterday morning, according to our buddy Lenardi, they were in the first 4 out. And so going on the road, South Carolina, winning that game at Clemson, that is massive for their tournament hopes. You know, the ACC, man, this is a conference. I mentioned how, you know, there's a lot of value with mid-majors. We talk about tonight's board, 57 games, no top 25 teams. There are just certain conferences that as a year progresses, any given season, you develop a feel for, and certain conferences you don't. I hate the ACC from a betting standpoint this year. It's all over the place. I mean, Clemson was a short favorite at home a couple of weeks ago to NC State. I like the spot. They blow a lead. They lose in overtime. You know, this one, they were a big favorite. I stayed away. But then NC State catching 7 and a hook goes to Louisville, a team that's been pretty mediocre as of late after a hot start. And they get the doors blown off. The Cardinals put up a $118 in regulation. When the hell does that happen in college hoops? So the ACC is all over the place right now. It is a tough conference to figure. I don't know if that means there's a lot of good teams or a lot of not so good teams. I lean towards the latter there. I think that there are quite a few overrated squads in the ACC this year.
Duke only has one conference loss. It was Saturday in the rivalry down Tobacco Road against North Carolina. Of course, Seth Trimble nearly at the buzzer. And then UNC backs that up on Tuesday, with a road loss against the Miami team that in its first year under Jay Lucas has been pretty good, but UNC unable to stack some wins. It's why Duke right now, with just a full game lead atop the ACC in front of Clemson and Virginia, both of those squads at 10-2 in conference play, Duke is minus 500 to win the ACC regular season title. Florida minus 800 to win the SEC regular season title, only up by a game. And UConn, who suffered its first loss in nearly 2 months on Friday night to St. John's, bounces back last night, Joe, on the road in Indianapolis against Butler. 80-70. The Bulldogs had an early lead in the opening half. UConn wins by double digits, but fails to cover as an 11.5-point favorite. UConn has been a double-digit favorite in Big East play now 9 times since the calendar flipped to 2026. Dan Hurley's Huskies have won all of those games, but they're just 1-8 against the spread.
Yeah, this UConn team, look, make no mistake about it. They're incredible. What separates them, what makes them different from the team that went back-to-back a few years ago, they're not covering like those teams were. Those back-to-back championship teams who won every tournament game by double digits. You know, this is a little different with this year's UConn Huskies squad, but hey, they're winning games. That Big East is really top heavy with them in St. John's. The Johnnies finally figuring it out after they came up short seemingly every time they had a chance. Iowa State, Auburn, Kentucky. They led early in all those games, squandered all of those leads. Now the Johnnies in conference play 12-1 straight up. And it's going to be interesting to see how things finish between them and UConn with the Big East tournament, of course, at Madison Square Garden. But I like both of these squads. I think they could both make a run come March. This Johnnies team is interesting, Ben. I don't think they're as talented as last year's squad, but I think that they're primed to make a deeper run than last year's team that I believe got a rough draw, Patino, Calipari, and got bounced round of 32.
Yeah, we'll see. There's one more game between St. John's and Connecticut coming up near the end of this month, Wednesday, February 25th. That game going to be in Stores or perhaps New Haven, wherever they're playing the game. It's going to be a raucous environment and critical for that race to win the Big East regular season crown. Right now, the Huskies minus 225. The Wolverines in Ann Arbor, the Michigan team, who is number 2 in the country right now, but with an Arizona loss earlier in the week, could be number 1 if they just take care of business this week. Joe, yesterday booked as a 15.5-point road favorite against Northwestern. Michigan trailed by 16 early in the second half, the largest deficit the Maize and Blue had seen all year. They end the game on a 45-17 run to knock off Northwestern in Evanston and still find a way to win by 12, 87-75. The Cats do cover as a 15.5-point home dog, but Michigan made what seemed to be a disastrous night north of Chicago turn into another double-digit win.
Yeah, this Michigan team is interesting, Ben. You look at the numbers and you're like, wow, they're beating everyone by double digits. What's there to complain about? But I don't know. I look at some of those double-digit wins, and it's at Washington, it's at Oregon, a couple of double-digit wins, but non-covers for the Wolverines. And then I look at the Michigan State game, which if you're just looking at the stat sheet, you see 83-71. But if you watched the game, you saw Michigan blow a 20-point lead. So, there are certain things about this Michigan team. Sometimes I wonder if it's just a case of them playing with their food. Other times I wonder if they're going to get to the field of 68 and, maybe be a 1 seed who gets bounced in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8.
Yeah, we'll see. We get the early top 16 bracket reveal on Saturday before Michigan's game back in Ann Arbor hosting UCLA. Michigan is going to be on the 1 line. They are going to be a 1 seed in the big dance more than likely. We'll see how they fare come the month of March. Saving money on gas is easier now than ever with the free Upside app. Just download the app, check nearby offers, and earn cash back every time you fill up. Use promo code SPORTS and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. Drivers are seeing $200 to $300 a year back just from their normal commute. It takes seconds to use, and you can cash out anytime to your bank or gift cards. Download the free Upside app today and use promo code SPORTS. Offers vary by user and location. Visit upside.com for details. 57 D1 men's college basketball games, Joe, on this Thursday. Of all of them, we've mentioned a couple of those mid-major conferences. Which one has your interest the most?
Man, I am excited about some Summit League action and this St. Thomas team. I think that the Tommies are an absolute juggernaut. You talk about winning with margin. They've been doing exactly that lately, especially on the road. 6-0 against the number as road favorites. You can get minus 3.5 at your standard 10-cent vig at Omaha. I got minus 4.5 last night at even money. We'll dive in more later on, but St. Thomas at Omaha, I love that spot.
Pay attention to Johnny Tower and those Tommies, 9-2 in Summit League action covering in 7 of 9. But we get you set for Olympic hockey. Team USA starting its Olympic journey on the other side of the break.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Money Moves rolls on this Thursday afternoon, a Thursday afternoon that begins Team USA's march in Olympic hockey over in Milan. He's Joe Serralo, I'm Ben Stevens, and of course, to get you set for everything on the Olympic stage, we are very pleased right now to go to the Progressive guest line and welcome on VSiN's NHL and now Olympic hockey betting analyst Jonathan Davis to the show on this Thursday. Jonathan, just about 40 minutes out from puck drop for Team USA against Team Latvia, but it appears the sweater you are wearing is not the Stars and Stripes.
No, it is not. This is the dual citizen, born in Montreal, raised in Toronto. I definitely bleed the red and white of Canada, and it was a nice start to the tournament. It was an early start to the day. I happened to wake up at about 4 a.m. and just purely by accident turned on the first game of the day, and that was That was Switzerland, and God, I can't even remember anymore. It's all a blur. But no, it's a great time. It's a phenomenal time, and can't wait for, just after the top of the hour for the U.S. To get underway.
Listen, Olympic hockey
Man, a Canadian
over in
on
Europe is a very early start for us here on the West Coast. Jonathan, let's dive into that opening matchup for Team USA against Latvia. 3.5 goal puck line number in favor of the Americans. It's minus 2,400 on that money line. The over-under currently stands at 6.5. It is supposed to be a pretty lopsided victory for Team USA. How do the Americans do just that?
Yeah, I mean, it really shouldn't. It's really a tune-up game. I mean, the one concern that I would have for the U.S. is that they do have the easiest draw of all three groups. It's Latvia. It's Germany will present them with their toughest test, and then after that, it's a game against France, and France, was no match today for the Swiss. So. I would look more at player props for me in this one here. And, as I did in the write-up today at VSiN.com, one of the guys that I would look at is Tage Thompson of the Buffalo Sabres. He's got 5 goals in 3 NHL games versus the Latvian starting goalie Elvis Merzlikins. So, I think player props to me are the way to approach it. There's not, a tremendous value, maybe in game. I mean, that's kind of like what I did today with the Canada game. I mean, I did have a lot of plays, but I did jump on the total at over 4.5 early in the second period once it got down to a playable price at about minus 125. So I would look maybe in game at some potential betting opportunities if you're looking at a spread or a total.
Yeah, so JD, we look at this total 6.5, man. And obviously, if that total hits, if they reach 6-7 goals, it's going to be pretty lopsided. Most of them are going to be on the U.S. side. Where are some of the juiciest goal scorer props that you're looking at? Where is there some value? Maybe a defenseman? Who do you like to potentially put one in the back of the net that maybe for a small wager could provide some juicy value?
Well, I mean, look, so you got Tage Thompson from Buffalo. You get him at plus 190. You'd never get him at that number during a regular season game in the NHL. Matt Boldy, who is one of the top 4 goal scorers in the NHL, he's at plus 210. He's playing on USA's top line. And another guy that I would look at is Zach Werenski from the Columbus Blue Jackets at plus 360. Again, a number that you would never see in his playing in the NHL. He was tied for the points lead for Team USA back at the Four Nations tournament. Didn't score a goal in that tournament. But at plus 360, a guy who's going to play, on the power play for the Americans, it's a really nice price for me.
Jonathan Davis joining us here on this Thursday on the Progressive Guest Line. Of course, VSiN's NHL and now Olympic hockey betting analyst. You can follow Jonathan on Twitter or X at West Coast Hockey. JD, as we look at Team USA and starting that run over in Milan at the Winter Olympics, they're a hefty favorite to win Group C around a minus 800 price. Who is the toughest test for the Americans in this group to advance out of it in pole position?
Well, it's Germany. I mean, that's it. I mean, Latvia shouldn't really present them with any test. The Germans have Leon Draisaitl from the Edmonton Oilers. They have Tim Stützle from the Ottawa Senators. They've got Moritz Seider from the Detroit Red Wings. And in goal, they've got Philip Grubauer, who plays for Seattle. And Grubauer has the potential to steal a game. But that's going to be their only test in the tournament would be the Germans until they, and then we'll see where they land, come the medal round. But here's the one thing that I would look at. You could, if you like the over, I would just maybe target the U.S. team total over. One of the things that is key when it comes to seeding is goal differential. So, Canada today is +5 after, their opening game against the Czech Republic, shutting them out 5-0. So they're +5 when it comes to the goal differential. So I could see, I think teams are not going to take it lightly on their opponent. If they have the opportunity to bury them, they will, because goal differential plays into seeding.
I like that angle a lot with the team total instead of the full game total. Jonathan, looking at this futures market here, I don't want to discount anyone, but it does feel like Canada and the U.S. are probably going to be squaring off for gold. You look at to win a medal. on DraftKings right now. Sweden is minus 160. After them, Finland, Switzerland, Czech Republic, Slovakia. You're getting into 3-1 and even more value. Do you feel like it's a foregone conclusion that Sweden will medal, at least with a bronze, or do you see some value on that board?
I see value on the board with the Czech Republic, who Canada beat today. I think they are the third best team in this tournament. You can get them around plus 330 is where I got them to win a medal. I know Mike Palm got them at plus 750 to win the bronze. So for me, if you're going to, I like them. I really believe that they're going to be, so 4 teams get first round buys. The teams that win each group get a bye, and then the next team with the best record. I think that could easily be the Czech Republic. I like them to win a medal in this tournament.
So, JD, as we all are hoping for, following the 4 nations face-off last year that saw Team USA and Team Canada best on best and now on an Olympic stage, Joe just mentioned it. The Canadians are minus 105 to win gold. Team USA, the second shortest number, at plus 195. Where are the distinctions between both of these clubs as they enter their Olympic journey?
Well, look, I think the Canadians are the best team as the odds indicate. And in many ways, I think the only team that beats the Canadians are the Canadians. I just think that they are, I really think they're that good. But, look, plus 190, you can make an argument to play either side. I mean, plus 195 for the U.S., arguably, the best or the second best team as the odds indicate. It's great value. I got Canada at plus 105 a couple of days ago just because, hey, plus money to get a team that I think is going to win gold, and I'm not going to see a better number down the road. So it's really a matter of, where your heartstrings tell you. Either one are good bets at this price. I just went with Canada because I think they are the best team. And by the way, just one other stat on Canada. Just after today's win over the Czech Republic, they have won 11 straight Olympic games with NHL players on their roster. And they've gone over 220 minutes in Olympic games with NHL players having not surrendered a goal.
JD, last one for me. You mentioned Canada's dominance with NHL players on their roster in the Olympics, right? Obviously, Olympic regulations, rinks, a little different than the NHL. Is that advantage Canada, or can the U.S. utilize that to their advantage?
Well, the advantage is kind of minimized now because this rink here, it's the same length, or roughly the same length as NHL rinks, but it's not as wide as the international rinks, and it's definitely wider than an NHL rink. So it's closer in style to, or in structure to, an NHL rink. So I think it actually takes away any advantages for the European countries as opposed to really helping out either of the North American countries.
Jonathan Davis joining us here on this Thursday on Money Moves. We are just about a half an hour away from Team USA starting in the Olympics against Team Latvia. Again, a 3.5 goal favorite on that puck line, minus 2,400 money line. And JD says, keep an eye on Tage Thompson, maybe to hit the back of the net as well. JD, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much for being here on this Thursday and making everybody a ton smarter in this Olympic hockey journey.
I hope so, and I hope to be able to pad your wallets.
I hope so as well. And the Canadian Maple Leaf on his chest after Team Canada picks up a 5-zip opening win against the Czech Republic. Again, Canada minus 105 to win gold. Team USA plus 190. Joe, I think we're all hoping for that to be the gold medal game, because what theater that will be to basically end the 2-week stretch in Milan.
I mean, it didn't get better than the one where Sidney Crosby had the game winner, a little over a decade ago or so. If we can get something that somewhat replicates that, it would be a blast.
We will be watching, that is for sure. Plenty more to break down here on VSiN's Money Moves. We have a little bit of NBA thoughts entering the All-Star break on the other side of the break.
You're watching Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Thursday on Money Moves continues. He's Joe Serralo. I am Ben Stevens. We appreciate you joining us here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We are moments away from the Team USA beginnings in Milan at the Winter Olympics for the men's hockey side. Of course, a hefty favorite today against Latvia. Maybe a little bit of live bet Saturday, as I host every weekend, as we can look at how the game starts to play out between the Americans and the Latvians. Again, games over-under stands at 6.5. But on this Thursday, Joe, we've got 3 more games that ends out the unofficial first half of the NBA season, entering All-Star Weekend in Los Angeles. 3 games today, but 14 yesterday. We hit on those best teams in the Eastern Conference. The 4 teams atop the Eastern Conference odds board, all separated by less than $1. If you were looking at those 4 teams right now, the Cavs are the favorites, followed by your Knicks, but just by about 20 cents. Only 10 cents back of that, the Detroit Pistons, and the Boston Celtics, who are playing good basketball even without Jason Tatum at plus 380. Which team do you have the most confidence in right now, maybe to win that Eastern Conference title?
You know, I mentioned this earlier, and even though they've had some struggles away from Madison Square Garden, Ben, I really do believe it's the Knicks year. And plus 360, you know, I highlighted this on VSiN Live on Mad Dog Radio back over the holidays, the day after Christmas. They were plus 270 back then. Now you're getting nearly $1 of a better price on a team that last year could have easily been finals bound. I mean, Halliburton has the shot from hell, as Knicks fans remember, bounces 48 feet in the air and goes through game 1. And then it was just, you know, a mess after that. But I really do have confidence in this Knicks team. They didn't make the massive splash at the trade deadline. There's no Giannis to New York. But you look at the move they made for Alvarado, right? This team, as great as they have individual defenders out there, Anunoby, Bridges, they've been inconsistent defensively this year, especially on the road. Well, they get Alvarado, who's just a spark plug off the bench, great defender. And then, oh, by the way, he adds damn near 30 points in that 50-point win over Philadelphia. I mean, this team, I love the way they're constructed. They're far deeper than last year's squad. They will run 8-9 guys, sets of fresh legs out there. They've got the balance down low of offensive prowess in Karl Anthony Towns and absolute ferocity in Mitchell Robinson. Their guards complement each other beautifully. Anunoby is a two-way stud. Bridges is finding his groove. I really believe at plus 360, the New York Knicks are the bet to emerge from the East.
In that third spot right now in the Eastern Conference standings, a half game behind the Boston Celtics, who are 5.5 behind the Detroit Pistons. A 49-point road win in Philadelphia last night. Again, we mentioned it earlier, but yesterday on Money Moves, at this time, the Knicks on the second leg of a back-to-back, changing from a home destination inside the Garden down to Philly to take on the Sixers, were booked as a 2.5-point road underdog. As you saw, they close as a 2.5-point road favorite. No Joel Embiid for Philadelphia in their final game before the All-Star break. The Knicks take advantage. Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, all playing, but it was really Jose Alvarado, the 26 points and 8 made threes, with those 5 thefts off the bench that led the way for New York. Detroit wins big on the road in Toronto. 5.5 game lead for the Pistons at the All-Star break. The team that is the most perhaps confusing, but maybe enticing to me, Joe, is the Cleveland Cavaliers. We have seen the postseason experience for the Cavs the last few years, unable to get over the hump. But they make the move for James Harden. And we all know James Harden in the postseason has led to its fair share of criticism and fun memes. But James Harden is not the guy right now in the land. He just needs to be that facilitator, that orchestrator for Donovan Mitchell, for Jarrett Allen, for Evan Mobley, and seems comfortable in that role. Last night it was Sam Merrill, 32 points, 9 of 10 from 3 as the Cavs win by 25 at home in a matchup over the Washington Wizards, 138-113, easily covering as a 17.5-point home favorite. The Cavs now enter the All-Star break, winners of 5 consecutive, including all 3 with James Harden in a Cleveland uniform. And Joe, I do believe they're rightfully favored, even if just by a couple of dimes at 3-1 to win the Eastern Conference. They are, to me, the most compelling team right now in a very up-in-the-air East.
I think to call them the most compelling team is a fair statement. Look, with James Harden, he's at the point of his career where what's your legacy going to be, right? Everyone knows what the numbers are. The numbers, if you retired tomorrow, are phenomenal. They're Hall of Fame worthy in Springfield. But what's your legacy going to be? Are you going to go down as the guy who just hopped around team to team chasing a ring and never got there? Or are you going to check your ego and do what you need to do, not to pad your own stats, but to make the team better. And it's been a minute sample size. He's been there, just 2 games? But one thing I love through his couple of games in Cleveland, he's 2 for 2 on double-doubles. 1 via assists, 1 via rebounds in a game where he also added 7 dimes. Can you channel your late stages of your career Dwayne Wade and embrace not being the number one after previously being accustomed to being the number one? Because it's Donovan Mitchell's team, like you said. And frankly, if we're being honest, it's probably Evan Mobley's second to Mitchell. Can James Harden be comfortable being second fiddle in the backcourt and maybe the third most important factor on the starting 5 as a whole? If he can do that, this team really does have increased potential versus, and I know a lot of Cavs fans were pissed off about Garland being traded, but I think if Harden can embrace that role and elevate Mitchell and elevate Mobley and hit shots when he needs to, they'll be better off post this trade than they were pre the trade, at least this year, because he's 36 and Garland, of course, 26.
It feels like the Eastern Conference is the more fun side of the NBA right now. The 4 teams separated by just 80 cents atop the board, even Philly at 11-1. It still feels like, Joe, that everybody in the Western Conference, heck, maybe everybody in the NBA, not in Oklahoma City, is still trying to play catch up and get to the Thunder, who are right now a minus 125 favorite to win the Western Conference crown, a plus 130 favorite to win the NBA championship outright on DraftKings. OKC got off to the magical start. Winners of 24 of their first 25 games as the reigning champs. They were 35-7 on January 15th, but entering last night on the road in Phoenix, had just split their last 12 games. Still the best record in the NBA, but maybe a little bit more human for OKC. Last night, as a road favorite of 8.5 points, they beat the Suns, the best covered team in the association, by nearly 30, 136-109, without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. 74 bench points for the Thunder, led by Isaiah Joe, posting 21 to lead those reserves. So the Thunder will have one more game on this Thursday night before the All-Star break comes, but it feels as though they are trying to enter that All-Star break with some more positive momentum.
Yeah, look, 7-6 since that, 35-7 start that you just mentioned. There were props up. Will the Thunder, break the record for most wins in a single season? That is long in the rearview mirror now, about a month later, as they're 7-6 over their last 13. I think it's actually absurd that they're minus 125, that they're odds on to win the Western Conference. I think that the Western Conference is so much closer up top than the odds would reflect. And you look at San Antonio in that 2 seed, a team that on numerous occasions has had their way with Oklahoma City this year. You look at Denver in that 3 seed. Now, look, Denver, obviously the supporting cast is not going to wow you. They're not as balanced as Oklahoma City, but Murray's on his way to his first All-Star game. And I can't get that Christmas Day nightcap out of my head, where Jokic goes otherworldly for like 17 of their last 20 points in the final 2 minutes of regulation and overtime. And I look at this Denver team and I look at San Antonio, and I'm wondering, how can we not make a little play there? Now, Denver's coming in around 3-1 plus 350. I don't love that, but the Spurs, who currently have the 2 seed, sitting there at 9-1. And there is a world, by the way, where Houston's right on their heels. There's a world where Denver's the 4 seed, and the Nuggets and the Thunder beat the crap out of each other in the second round in a 1 versus 4. And San Antonio as the 2 seed might have the easier path to the conference finals. I think 9-1 is preposterous for the Spurs. I think you'd be nuts not to take a little piece of that action.
The Spurs winning last night in San Francisco by 13 against Golden State, 126-113. They cover as a slight road favorite. They have won 6 straight entering the All-Star break, covering in all 6. And Victor Wembanyama, 26 points, 9 boards last night against the Dubs. Nikola Jokic, a triple-double for his Denver Nuggets. In a game that was maybe a little bit closer than anticipated. Denver was a double-digit favorite at home against the Grizzlies. They win that game by 6. But to Joe's point, San Antonio only 3.5 games back right now of Oklahoma City in the Western Conference standings. And the one thing the Spurs have proven this year, with already 4 wins against OKC, including in the NBA Cup semifinal, they can match up with the reigning defending NBA champions throughout this season. We shall see. Also, did just want to update everybody. We are underway in round number 1 at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and it's a signature event on the PGA Tour, and the leaderboard is delivering. Ryo Hisatsune is in the lead right now at 7 under, but there are a ton of guys just behind by 2 shots, including Siwoo Kim, who Neil Parker on the show yesterday gave out as his outright bet at 25-1. He's 5 under. Jordan Spieth is 5 under. Rory McIlroy is 5 under. Chris Gotterup is 5 under. Tommy Fleetwood 5 under. Akshay Bhatia 5 under. A great start out there in the California coast. He's Joe Serralo. I'm Ben Stevens. We're not anywhere close to done on Money Moves. Our second hour on the other side of the break here on VSiN.